I want to come on here and talk about how extreme, how great, how amazing, how many things I saw that I've never seen before on last night's show. But unfortunately, I can't. I can't because the show had some things that didn't make sense, some things that were very good, some things that just weren't good. When I talk about this Extreme Rules show, going into this show, my mind was set on the fact that this is Extreme Rules. Was this a good wrestling show? I can't really say that. Was this a good Extreme Rules show? Absolutely not. This show was not extreme. Extreme Rules used to be a show that was filled with lots of different things of crazy magnitude. This show was not extreme, and Extreme Rules has gotten worse throughout the years. We're going to talk about Extreme Rules. We're going to fully review the show and all the things that happened right here. Go nowhere else. Who's randomly not passing a physical, an MVP crowning himself United States champion, which is another way of what I think is him testing positive for COVID. Was it Sasha Banks winning the Raw Women's title, which, unless it results in Sasha taking Bayley's title at the same time, didn't need to happen? Was it an eye for an eye match that finished so unexciting? Or was it the tag team titles changing hands because we all know Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura are just a transitional champions to get New Day as 9-time champions? This is your Extreme Rules review. Ladies and gentlemen, hit the like button, subscribe. We're going to talk about this entire show. What went right, what didn't go right. The first match that opened up the show was a fairly good match. Now, me personally, I love tables matches, but for some reason, I actually wanted the match to be a steel cage because I think the New Day and Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura could have offered a lot more inside of a steel cage. This was a tag team match for the SmackDown Tag Team Championships, fueled by revenge after being put through a table by their challengers on SmackDown. The match began as a tables match. The New Day took the fight to Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura early in their tables match. Big E obliterated Cesaro with a spear through the ropes. It's always awesome when Big E does that spear through the ropes. I do worry for his safety sometimes. The first high spot of the night, the champs looked to continue their hot streak when Big E sent Kofi Kingston soaring over the ropes and right onto a table held by the challengers. I will say this. For a tables match, this match was fairly good, at least of what I thought. The winner didn't make too much sense. With Kingston neutralized, for the first time being, the challengers focused their attack on the powerful teammate, but the former WWE champion exploded back into the match with a trust fall that wiped Nakamura out. The comeback was short-lived, though. The artist sent Kingston through the floor, and Cesaro swung Big E right into the Kinshasa by his teammate. Kingston again hit back by taking out both opponents. Kingston's own momentum proved costly, though, as Cesaro caught him in the Hurricane Rana attempt and drove him through a stack of tables for the win on the titles. I'm going to say this right now. The ending to this match looked tough. It rubbed off as a tables match kind of ending. And to be honest with you, the New Day, when they shine, the New Day are capable of going to war with literally any tag team in WWE. You know, this tag team, the New Day, started off as a joke, as a shits and giggles kind of thing. You know, oh, New Day dancing, laughing, bootios. But silently, the New Day have become one of the best consistently things in the tag team division in WWE. The New Day have had so many great matches over the last couple of years. To me personally, their matches with the Usos are some of my favorites. The New Day, Xavier Woods, Big E Langston, and Kofi Kingston are so great as a team. It doesn't surprise me they've had the gold so many times. Now, as far as Cesaro and Nakamura winning the tag team titles, I don't really think there's a purpose to that. Because I don't think that, you know, Cesaro and Nakamura, it's great that they're finally in something that is important. But this was a match that exceeded a lot of expectations to me, and I thought that they brought in a reasonable amount of energy into this match, which made it a special match. Now, we talk about other tag teams. Bleacher Report reports here that Jimmy Uso is hurt. The Forgotten Sons tweeted out of relevancy, and the former champs John Morrison and The Miz are heels. Expect this to just be a final chapter of this particular rivalry because there's nowhere else for either team to go. Cesaro and Nakamura will not hold the SmackDown Tag Team titles much longer. I would say SummerSlam at best. Now, what happens at SummerSlam? I could see WWE just throwing every tag team together and calling it a fatal four-way tag team match. That's coming, by the way. You heard it here first. And Cesaro and Nakamura will drop the titles in less than a month. Do the New Day win them back? I guess. You know, I've always been one of those guys that I bank on what a champion does with the title, as opposed to how many times they've won it. I will take a 3-time champion that has held the title for a year on average each time over a 9-time champion with a 2-week title reign. Okay, and that's just how it goes. Good match, good start, and the next match actually was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. To be honest, it was the SmackDown Women's Championship match between Nikki Cross and Bayley, and I'll tell you this. Nikki Cross is good. Maybe she's not a champion in a lot of people's eyes. Bayley and Sasha have quietly been one of the best things on all of television. Their tag team has just been great. They've worked so well together. And the fact that they have 45,000 championships on their belt, I can't really blame them. Arrogant SmackDown Women's Champion Bayley saw her title reign flash before her eyes early in the defense against Nikki Cross Sunday. The challenger caught her with a neck breaker that put her down for a near fall, then followed with a tornado DDT that had the role model reeling. A crossbody from the top rope continued the challenger's roll until Bayley sent her crashing into the plexiglass surrounding the ringside area. The champion meticulously worked over Cross, slowing the pace of the match and making the challenger work at her speed. Bayley, though, took her eye off the Scot, and paid for it as she fought her way back into the match and applied a crossface. The champ fought out and delivered a Bayley to belly, but could only keep Cross down for a 2. In all honesty, I thought that was going to be the end of the match right there. I went back and watched it, and I said, you know what, that's the end of the match. Just like that. But she kicked out, and it made Nikki Cross seem like a much better figure than she's actually been presented on television. Cross hit back with a basement dropkick, followed by a running bulldog, and delivered a ripcord neckbreaker for 2. I need you to pull it together, Sasha Banks said to Bayley from ringside. She piped in again, this time in disbelief when her friend failed to put her opponent away. Cross executed a perfect draping, twisting neckbreaker on the floor. Back inside, the Scot scared another 2 count as concern painted the face of Banks. The boss eventually said enough of this. She distracted the referee, slid Bayley her boss knuckle ring, and the champion used it to stun Cross, then followed by a face plant, and the champion successfully retained her title 3 seconds later. This match was a lot better than I thought. Go back and watch this match and tell me what you actually think about it, because let me tell you this. The match was built around Nikki Cross being resilient, which we know she is. She was confident she would roll over a challenger, and it didn't happen. She grew more and more concerned, and it eventually resulted in Sasha Banks lending an unfair advantage to Bayley. Brass knuckles with the cheat win on the heel heat. This was a good match. So up to this point, you know, I actually arrived home. I was out with someone yesterday. I had arrived home a little bit later. I arrived home about like 7:30ish, so I had to go back and watch this. But to be honest with you, at this point in the show, maybe it doesn't feel extreme, but we're coming off of 2 good matches to start the show. And you know what? I had no problem with Bayley and Nikki Cross. I thought this was good. What kind of brought the show down was what was supposed to be a U.S. title match between Apollo. What it resulted in was MVP versus nobody. Commentator Tom Phillips announced Apollo Crews was not able to pass his pre-match physical due to injury and would be unable to defend his United States Championship against MVP Sunday night. The braggadocious heel made his way to the ring alongside Bobby Lashley and urged his charge not to apply his trademark full Nelson to such an extent that it impeded MVP's own career advancement, LOL. He declared himself the winner by forfeit and the new United States Champion. Analysis. Crews has not been on TV for weeks. They said he might have been hurt a couple weeks ago. If his absence is related to the pandemic, you again have to ask the company why they continue to advertise him knowing he would be unable to appear. Why this is questionable? The silver lining is that it allows MVP to continue building heat and enjoy the career renaissance he found in 2020. I personally believe that Apollo Crews did test positive for COVID-19. Do we know? No. You know, I believe that their names, they don't have to put out their names if they don't want to. We've seen a couple of people, I believe Kayla Braxton tested positive for COVID and came back on television. We've seen people that have tested positive come back. Again, you have to ask, you know, Bleacher Report has it on the dot here. If it was COVID-19 related, why would they continue to advertise him? Especially because Extreme Rules said live, but I don't even know if Extreme Rules was live last night. They knew well before the show that he wasn't going to be on the show. You know, I don't know where this goes and how this develops tonight. A match that, in all honesty, was good, but it took a while to get to that point. This match was very slow moving, and the ending didn't really make sense. This was the match that's been hyped for a while, an eye for an eye match between Rey Mysterio and Seth Rollins. This feud has been built for many, many months. I can tell you this right now, the feud is not done. A lot of people mentioned that they thought that Seth Rollins should have had a match with Dominic, Rey Mysterio's son, at Extreme Rules, beat the living hell out of him, and then force the match at SummerSlam. These two will fight at SummerSlam. Hopefully it would result in Rey Mysterio getting the win. Now let's talk about this eye for an eye match. Bleacher Report states that, well, first let's go over the rules. The only way to win is to gouge your opponent's eye out. Obviously, there's no eye gouging. But Rey Mysterio got off red hot. He did the battle most surreal in recent WWE history, and it includes the Firefly Funhouse match. He inexplicably began with Irish whips as Seth Rollins and Rey Mysterio did battle in the most surreal match in recent history. As he slowed the opponent's momentum, Rollins methodically began his targeting of the eye. He sent Mysterio's sternum first onto a table, driving the air out of him. None of this would have happened if you would have just listened, Messiah exclaimed as he grabbed a chair and threatened to drive it into the veteran's eye. Rollins retrieved tool after tool, weapon after weapon in an attempt to win the match, but quickly found himself on the defensive. Back in the ring and having halted Mysterio's momentum, he lodged a kendo stick in the corner and tried to send the future Hall of Famer into it. The master of the 619 fought him off and ignited a nice babyface comeback of sorts. He delivered a seated senton and followed with a frog splash. Hoisted on Rollins' shoulders, Mysterio used a kendo stick to break his opponent's grip, sent Rollins crashing into the barricade. He broke apart the kendo stick and dug it into the face of his opponent, trying to dislodge Rollins' eyeball. He followed with a 619. I figured that, I didn't think, in all honesty, that Rey Mysterio was going to win this match. But after the 619, I started thinking, well, maybe there's a chance. Mysterio delivered a stomp to Rollins, giving him a taste of his own medicine. Removing the black patch from his mask, he drove his rival's eye into the ring steps. The Monday Night Messiah, though, delivered a perfectly timed low blow. A sickened kick directly to the face followed, and a stomp appeared to spell the end for the veteran. The match ended with Rollins driving Mysterio's face into the steel steps corner, and the referee calling for the bell. The victor vomited, clearly haunted by the imagery that the referees helped the master of the 619 to the back. The NXT recruits at ringside jeered the Messiah, who sulked to the back with the look of a tormented man. Seth Rollins did a great job of selling what this match was. Vomiting. Now, I don't know. I always wonder, when someone vomits like that, is that them actually forcefully vomiting themselves? I got to ask that question. NXT recruits at ringside. Now, this match could have ended a little bit better. I didn't actually think we were going to see an eyeball. We haven't even seen Rey Mysterio, I don't think, with his mask off. We've seen situations in matches with Rey Mysterio in the past where his mask has come off and he's covered with a towel. They did a great job of selling this, and it was a good match. I thought that there was potential for more. I thought, in all honesty, Bleacher Report says, had this match been a straightforward no disqualification match, it would have provided a lot more than eye for an eye. I honestly think that, no pun intended, it shouldn't have been an eye for an eye match. That wasn't necessary. They could have literally just had an Extreme Rules match, plain and simple, because if that was the case, this was a really good match. Rey Mysterio is starting to feel important. Seth Rollins as well. I really like this feud. It's the eye for an eye part of it. WWE kept the finish relatively rooted in the reality rather than relying on CGI. One thing that made no sense, Rollins being so stricken by the effects of his actions when he did the same thing to set the whole ordeal up. Hopefully his reaction ties his character going forward, because it may well be the silver lining of the whole thing. The feud continues, I tell you that. But how? What exactly, you know what I mean? Coming up next is a match that started off great, but the ending absolutely sucked the life out of it. That's Sasha Banks taking on Asuka for the Raw Women's Championship. I thought going in, Sasha wouldn't win this championship, and to be honest with you, she still, in my eyes, officially didn't win it. Just an hour after she helped Bayley retain the SmackDown Women's Championship, Sasha Banks looked to add gold of her own as she challenged Asuka in a singles competition with Bayley and Kairi Sane watching on. Banks looked for the bang statement early, but Asuka escaped. Later, she tried for a sunset flip bomb, but the Raw Women's Champion stomped out of it and blasted with her sliding knee to the face. The Boss weathered the storm and reasserted dominance, targeting the arms of the Empress of Tomorrow. Bayley added words of encouragement from ringside as the challenger teed off on the shoulder of her opponent. Double knees to the midsection continued the Blueprint's onslaught. Asuka rocked Banks and followed up with a code breaker. The challenger evaded the hip attack and teased a German suplex off the apron. The champion elbowed out and then tried for one of her own. Sasha Banks escaped and powerbombed the Empress into the plexiglass at ringside. This was a nice spot. Banks delivered the frog splash in the ring, switched it to a Banks statement. Asuka, however, did get to grab the rope, forcing her opponent to break the hold. Building momentum for herself, the Raw title holder delivered a release German suplex, then another as she folded Banks up. The running hip attack followed by the Boss followed, but the Boss escaped the pin at 2. I lost my point here. The fight headed up top where the challenger fought out of a suplex and dropped Asuka to the mat. Banks took much time and the champion recovered. She tried for a German suplex off the top, but the Boss landed on her feet. Banks slipped off the ropes and immediately sold her knee, being hurt. I have to be the champion, she yelled at Asuka while nursing her knee. Asuka teed up the Asuka lock, but Bayley, returning the favor, provided a distraction at ringside. The role model dropped, same with a Bayley to belly, while a series of counters and reversals played out in the ring. Bayley tried everything she could to interfere, but ate a kick for her troubles. Asuka then, this is the end of the match. Now, Asuka then blew her green mist into the eyes of official when Banks ducked. Obviously, this wasn't supposed to happen. Bayley blasted the champion with the title, knocking her out. The SmackDown champion removed the referee's shirt, counted the pin, and declared Banks the new champion as confusion resigned. I don't mind the referee getting sprayed with the green mist. What I don't understand is how Bayley all of a sudden is referee and can make that decision. That doesn't add up. I'm sure tonight on Raw or wherever we will hear something about this because that doesn't add up and it doesn't make sense. All of a sudden, I'm a referee now. Okay. I'm referee now. Look at me, guys. A+ match, D- finish. Absolutely. The match was great. The finish really sucked the life out of it. Sasha Banks winning the Raw Women's Championship has absolutely nothing to do. But Banks and Asuka will have a difficult time finding the same flow they had Sunday night. There's no reason for Sasha to have this title, because in all honesty, Sasha Banks should be having the other women's title. Co-main event. Love this match. I love both of these men, their style of wrestling, and I'm really happy Dolph Ziggler got a chance to really prove out here. It was Drew McIntyre defending his WWE Championship against Dolph Ziggler, and I will tell you this right now. Dolph Ziggler is one of the most underrated wrestlers in the last decade in WWE. I don't think there's anybody that's been more underutilized with so much talent. Drew McIntyre, every title defense he's had has been fantastic. Dolph Ziggler announced a lopsided match stipulation, which makes no sense, revealing Extreme Rules for himself only, and the WWE Championship would change hands if Drew got counted out or disqualified. So basically, Dolph Ziggler was allowed to do whatever the hell he wanted, but Drew McIntyre had restrictions. I mean, okay. It didn't affect Drew McIntyre. He brutalized and tossed his contender around the ringside area early and often. I can do this all damn night, he said as he taunted Dolph Ziggler. Ziggler answered with a totally acceptable low blow and blasted the champion with a steel chair. The title holder recovered and tossed the show off over the announce table, a famouser from the table that stunned McIntyre and left him in urgent need of beating the referee's count. Obviously, McIntyre beat the account at 9. He set up for a Claymore kick, only for Dolph Ziggler to blast him with a chair to the knee and score a near fall off of it. No Claymore kicks early out here, boy. Ziggler climbed the ropes and drove McIntyre through a table with a big elbow drop. He's literally the modern-day Shawn Michaels. Ziggler climbed the ropes, I said this, with a big elbow drop. He then screamed in disbelief as Drew McIntyre rolled back into the ring, avoiding the countout loss again. The champion rocked Dolph Ziggler with a glass cow kiss, but the challenger answered with a famouser, zigzag, and uranagi, and all for just another 2 count increased his frustration. McIntyre then quickly got up, knocked Dolph Ziggler with a Claymore, and got the win. Great match, honestly. It's just, Dolph Ziggler is great. Drew McIntyre is great. I can legitimately sit here and watch these guys work all the time. Now, Bleacher Report says Dolph Ziggler did whatever he could. We knew at the end of the day he wasn't going to get the win, but the quality was great. This was Dolph Ziggler's best performance in years. Considering he hasn't had much performances, it probably was. Scott sold his offense like a pro. The result was just a solid, smartly wrestled match that people will wrongfully forget about Monday night when WWE starts the march to SummerSlam and McIntyre's showdown with Randy Orton. I think Randy Orton would look great with gold on him. It's just, I don't like it coming at Drew McIntyre's expense. Drew McIntyre retains the title. Great match. Main event. Honestly, this was a good match. It wasn't wrestling. It was Braun Strowman taking on Bray Wyatt in a swamp fight. Now, I'm going to explain this real quickly. Let's say this. It was non-title. I was actually expecting Bray Wyatt to win. Technically, this match was a no decision, but it resulted in exactly how it needed to. It wasn't a match. Nobody cares about the match. It was how the match set up the future. The Wyatt swamp fight started off inauspiciously enough with Braun Strowman pulling up to the entrance of a swamp in his truck and coming face to face with Bray Wyatt. Things got weird. Strowman was kidnapped, supposedly, preached to, and bitten by a snake. He saw temptation in the form of Alexa Bliss as Sister Abigail. He sent Wyatt away in a diplomated boat. Braun Strowman was tied up in a chair, and Bray was yelling at him. This is kind of hard to explain. This is one of those situations where it was kind of like, think of the Firefly Funhouse match with John Cena at WrestleMania. It was kind of trippy. So basically, Braun was tied up into a chair. Bray was yelling at him. All of a sudden, Sister Abigail showed up, and Braun and Bray started fighting, and Braun bodied Bray Wyatt into a boat, and he would sail the boat off with Bray being unconscious in the boat, only for the boat to return back with nobody in it. So the same exact boat came back full swing with Wyatt not in it. Wyatt nearly drowned the Universal Champion as he assaulted him coming out of nowhere with an oar, unleashing his frustration and fury on Braun Strowman before letting out a blood-curdling scream. "Look what you made me do, I don't want to do this," Wyatt said as Strowman rose up and kicked him into the swamp. Just when Strowman thought it was over, Wyatt emerged from the swamp and pulled his rival in using the mandible claw. It was one of those things where both men drowned in the swamp, and then all of a sudden, we heard no noise. We saw the bubbles from the water, you know, when people drown. And it was all quiet. And I told my friend, I swear to God, 2 minutes before that this match concluded, Bray is down and he rises from the swamp as the Fiend. And the Fiend then emerged from the dark, watery abyss, and Wyatt's haunting laugh sent the show to black. This was a fantastic ending. The match itself, who cares? Having Bray Wyatt rise up in dressed as the Fiend does two things. It guarantees the feud to continue, and it guarantees the feud to continue at SummerSlam. I actually enjoyed this match. It was an A+. It wasn't really a match, but obviously the Fiend shows that at SummerSlam, we're going to get the Fiend versus Braun Strowman, which should result in Bray Wyatt, the Fiend, winning the Universal Championship back. I'm not a big Braun Strowman fan, but I'll be honest, in the last couple of weeks, he's done a lot of things right. His promos have been fantastic, and he's gone to a psychotic-like phase that has been more understandable. This is a longer review than usual. This show was not extreme. There were certain things that throughout it. You know, I'll say this. Let's give a quick recap. The opening tag team match, New Day dropping the titles to Cesaro and Shinsuke, great. Doesn't really make sense. Match was good. Bayley and Nikki Cross, good. We knew it was going to be a screwy finish. Apollo Crews and MVP, waste of time. Rey Mysterio, Seth Rollins, good. Ending could have been a little bit better. Asuka vs. Sasha, good match. The ending really killed it. Drew McIntyre, Dolph, great match. And Swamp Fight, good, and it's set up. So, you know, a lot of people say the show was terrible. From a grand standpoint of things, it might look like that, but there were a lot of important things on the show. And you know what else I'm going to tell you to do? Hit the like button and subscribe. Thank you for watching, as always.